Okay, in this video I'd like to show you how the AI in Carmageddon shows 10 traits of human intelligence in just one short clip. Now, you're not going to believe this. Now here you see I drive around the fence. I waste the Riviera right here, but I want you to pay attention to the left side of the screen because here you can see the next victim. He's positioning himself. He knows I wasted Riviera. He's positioning himself right where I'm going to be. Now look, I'm driving through the minefield. I'm collecting power-ups. And I go to this fence because my mini map tells me that the next opponent is on the other side of the fence here. See there how he was waiting there right for me, just exactly there for me, just as I arrived at the fence. Okay, so now he drives off as if he's trying to beckon me to follow him. You see that? Now, here I'm driving along. Oh, I see a power-up. I am following him, but I'm distracted by this power-up. Notice how Piranha he seems to realize I'm going to lose my balance in advance. He starts slamming into the wasted screw there. I like how the red vet comes along and kind of hits him. I wish he had hit me and maybe he would have tipped me back over again. But anyway, he's just kind of wasting his time, stalling for time here, seeing what I'm going to do now. Am I still going to meet him at the end of the fence or am I not? So here, watch here, because here I slam on my brakes because I'm going to go around through the opening of the fence right here. Notice how he starts coming. He's in what I call shadow mode. And I like how he changes lanes right here so it's not too obvious. And notice how he's positioning himself so he'll be there right as I come through the fence. So he knew what I was planning on doing. He knew I was planning on smashing through, not smashing through, but going around the fence there. But what I really like, the bit I really like in this clip is right here where he sees me on the other side of the fence. I see him through the fence and he knows that I see him. And you can just see that. You can see for a moment here, we're like looking at each other. See this? We're looking at each other, and he knows I see him, and he takes off, but I don't do anything. So he kind of pauses. He said, okay, what is this guy going to do? Then when I start to move, then he takes off again. So now let's see this in split screen. See, I can see him through the fence. He knows it, and see how he takes off? But I don't move, and he pauses for a moment because he wants to see whether I'm going to follow him or not. Let's look at this again. See, I see him through the fence. He pauses. He sees me. He pauses right here where he realizes I'm not moving. As soon as I start moving, then he takes off again. So let's think about what we just saw here. So I saw him through the fence. He saw me through the fence. He knew that I could see him, and so he was trying to encourage me to follow him. It's like he had the idea. Hey, he knows that this fence is indestructible. You can't smash through it. The only way to get past this fence is either to go over it somehow or to go around it. Even with a solid granite car power up, you can't smash through this fence. And so the AI knows this, and so he's trying to beckon me to follow him. And so when I don't seem to be moving at first, he pauses because he's trying to figure out whether I'm going to follow him or not. And then finally, when I do start moving, he takes off again. So let's see that again here in split screen view. So here we are. I see him through the fence. He sees me. He knows I see him. He starts to take off. I don't go. He pauses. I start to move, and he takes off again. So what traits of human intelligence does this show? Well, I hope I'm not accused of reading too much into this, but let's think about this. First of all, the AI showed a certain kind of empathy. Now, by that I don't mean that the AI felt sorry for the player. What I mean is that the AI was able to put itself in the player's shoes, so to speak, and it knew in other words, it knew what the player could see. It knew that I could see him, and it knew, but basically what my motivations were really. And that brings us to point number 2, and that is the AI knew what I wanted to do. It knew that I wanted to waste the opponent. Now, that might not be too surprising or too brilliant an observation, but remember there are 3 win conditions in this game. You can kill all the pedestrians, you can finish all the checkpoints, or you can waste all the opponents. And the AI has to base that knowledge on how the player has been playing the game up to the current point to know what the player is attempting to do. Now, the third trait of human intelligence that the AI demonstrated was a knowledge of the conditions that the player was operating under. For example, it knew that I could not smash through the fence. That fence is indestructible. Even with the solid granite car power-up, it's impossible to smash through the fence. The only way to to get past it is either to go over it somehow or go around it. So that brings us to the idea. The next point, point 4, is that the AI had an idea, another trait of human intelligence. The AI had an idea of rendezvousing, so to speak, on the other end of the fence. That's basically exactly what happened. The AI had the idea of, hey, let's meet at the other end of the fence. That was a trait of human intelligence. The AI had an idea, and it was to meet at the other end of the fence. Now, the next trait of human intelligence, point 5, is communication. The AI attempted to communicate its idea to the player. And the way it did that was through body language, so to speak. The way it started to move, it started to take off to, indicate that it wanted to go to the other end of the fence and was trying to get me to follow it. And then when it paused because I wasn't going anywhere, and then once I started moving, it started to take off again. It was communicating its idea to me. Number 6 is it showed psychology. It showed a certain amount of psychology and understanding that, hey, if I start going, this player wants to waste me, If I start going towards the end of the fence, I'll bet I can get that player to follow me. That's what the AI was doing. It was using psychology to get the player, try to goad the player into following it to the other end of the fence. Number 7 is it showed persistence. When I didn't follow right away, the AI tried again. Like when it started to take off and I didn't budge, it paused for a moment, trying to figure out, well, is this guy going to follow me or not? And then finally, when I did start to back up a little bit, then it started to take off again towards the end of the fence. So it showed persistence in attempting to get me to follow it. The next point is it showed the ability of prediction. It predicted that what I was going to do. When I started to move, the AI predicted that I was going to follow it. And I see this all throughout the game, all throughout this game of Carmageddon. Every time I play it, I see it predicting what's going to happen. And even when I started heading for that power up, and I was about to get tipped over, it seemed to know in advance that was going to happen. And it started pausing and waiting for me to recover. Which brings us to the next point, is number 9. It showed patience. When I tipped over, the AI started banging into Screwy Louie, just whiling away its time, waiting right there until I recovered. It showed patience. It didn't rush to the end of the fence, but it showed patience in waiting for me to recover again. And it just to show that it wasn't just mindlessly following me like a magnet. When I started taking off, then it didn't immediately start taking off and following me at the same time. It waited a while until it was sure I was going to go through that fence. When I hit the brakes to spin around, it started taking off again. And the next point is number 10 is subtlety. It's the way it changed lanes at the last minute, so that the fact that it wanted to be wasted wasn't too obvious. So let's see this again here. You see, I'm taking off. I'm not taking off. He pauses for a moment. He waits to see what I'm going to do, and finally I take off, and then he goes. So I hope you like this, and be sure to tune in to my next video, where I'm going to show you an example of the same kind of behavior that is so amazing it is going to blow you away. See you then.